So we'll get started here. So welcome everyone to the Security Unfiltered podcast. I'm Joe. I've been in security for 7 years, over 7 years now, and I'm here with my co-host Derek. He has been in security for way longer than me. I'll let Derek do his own intro there.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh my God. No, yeah, I've been in security for a while, as well as the enterprise side. So we'll definitely get a little bit into that, and just talk about our experience, and start this thing up.
Yeah, the whole purpose of this podcast is to really give all users some content that they can lean on to get more, you know, more advice, more guidance, more help in security. This isn't the easiest field in the world. This can be extremely stressful at times, and it's helpful to have a good podcast or a good show, that you can listen to that, it's unfiltered. We're not telling you some BS just because we're on the internet here and trying to get a whole bunch of views. We could get no views and still give you the same kind of content. We're here to give you the truth, from our own experiences and do with it what you may. So today we're going to be talking about young talent versus proven talent, what that kind of means, and really how young talent can get started in the field of cybersecurity.
Yeah, definitely, right. I mean, I think all of us were young at one point, right? I think that's one of the things we have in common. As we get old and move through our careers and what we want to do for a living and what brings us joy, we want to talk a little bit about what that role and that road was like, right? So that we can actually help those who actually want to follow us down the same kind of journey. So, young talent versus proven talent, getting into IT security, some of the things that we went through ourselves, help you guys get a shortcut and do it a little bit more efficient than we did. So,
Yeah,
definitely
hopefully.
looking forward to being able to, yeah, share some of our experiences here, and the good, the bad, the ugly, and just some of those things that probably save you from getting gray hairs faster than we do,
Hair. I
right?
haven't seen hair in a while. What you talking about?
Hey man, hey, so yeah, you living better than me, because I'm worrying, man. I'm looking in there every morning with a magnifying glass, like, damn, 3 more hairs, huh? Done went gray on me. I need a
I
raise.
mean, at least you. Yeah, don't we all?
Yeah,
My
but
God.
that's just what comes with, and that's the good part, right? We have some experience here, and we're still doing it ourselves. So definitely look forward to being able to share that and just talk to you guys.
Yeah, I think something that a lot of the younger generation, and it sounds weird for me to say that because
Yeah.
I'm still young, you know. But I think what's really important is that you have to remember that it's a process. It's going to take a while. No one's going to hire you straight out of college with your bachelor's and computer science or any other degree and just hand you a cybersecurity role, with an engineer title and say, here, go do this. Go put together this $10 million tool that we just bought that no one else in the company knows how to run. No
Yeah,
one's going to do that.
it's highly unlikely, right?
If
If you
they
ever,
do that, you should run. You should run for the hills.
yeah,
No one should be doing that.
maybe get in there for 2 weeks so you can get the title
Get
and
the
then run.
title, throw it on the resume.
No, but
You'll be
seriously.
hired quickly.
But no, yeah, Joe's right, right? You have to have some apprehension in situations like that. Just because as you start to go through your career, you realize that a good onboarding process, a good process to actually find the right candidate. There's some patience behind that, right? They're not trying to just throw you to the wolves and get you in there, but sometimes these organizations need a body. It is just what it is, right? As you know, cybersecurity, info security, whatever you want to call it, right? There's a buzzword for it every year, but um, there's a shortage, right, of just professionals that are able to come over into this space and then provide that guidance to organizations without necessarily becoming a blocker. So we want to talk about how you can get into security and also be a boon to your organization so that you can actually help them get projects and initiatives through without being that department of no, which is sometimes what they like to call us.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that is very interesting and very accurate of what you said. Um, so really getting started, from your experience, Derek, how do young professionals get started? Where do they start? They start help desk, um, or do they start before that even? I'll tell you from my personal experience, I started before that. So the very first thing that I did when I was in college, I was making, I don't know, $200 every 2 weeks from a campus job that I hated doing, wasn't IT related, and I saved up all my money, aside from all the beer money, and built a computer. And going through that whole process, just learning how to troubleshoot something on my own computer, breaking it, almost bricking it, almost completely ruining my computer several times, like for dumb reasons. Um,
I'm sure.
there's a lot at stake because like I'm making $400 a month. This
Yeah,
motherboard alone cost me 300.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what do you want me to do right now? And that's really where I cut my teeth on, so to speak, like just getting into the field, kind of dipping my big toe in, right? And then from there, I was able to really just convince people to
Hmm.
let me work IT at college. I mean, I worked for campus housing, I worked for the police department. It sounds more impressive than it actually is. Just doing basic IT stuff, basic help desk stuff. And guess what? When I graduated, I did basic help desk stuff for another 2.5, almost 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's I think there's all there are going to be different stories for each one of us, right? But you still have to pay your dues, right, and cut your teeth.
Right.
Um, it took me years to realize that IT wasn't just something that I was good at and wanted to do, and because it was so awesome, that's why organizations invested so much money in it, right? I always thought that, hey, man, I mean, overclocking and CPU and RAM and gaming and frames per second and all of that's awesome. No wonder you guys need an IT group, right? You need me to help you guys, do whatever you want to do to your computers. And it took a long time to realize that, oh, no, no, we're here to enable organizations, right? And a lot of processes, like you said, are processes in which you have to understand, what's your value, right? You can know a lot in IT about a lot of different things, but if the organization can't use that information, then you're kind of, handicapping yourself. So you have to mirror what you want to do with what organizations find value in what you do, and that way you can kind of meet them halfway, right? Because you may never be able to do all the things that you want to do with your IT skill, right? You may want to be into data. You may want to do databases or coding or pen testing or whatever, right? But if your organization has an open slot and they just need this, right, because it supports a critical function, then a lot of ways or a lot of times that's your way in, right? It's
Yep.
being able to say that, well, this is not my preferred, avenue, but I'll get in here so I can get that experience, right? And you can build those connections. You can learn more about what drives the organization, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, getting into IT and security for all of us is a different path, right? I mean, my first IT security job, I was unboxing monitors, and this organization pretty much needed to do a refresh of all the monitors on 4 floors. So there were like 300 monitors that we had to unbox, unwrap, do the twisty ties and untwist those bad boys,
Yeah.
and get under that desk and plug them in.
Yep.
And at the end of that night, I got paid for that one night. It was like $200. My fingers were raw from the twisty ties. And I go back to my car like, well, at least I got that experience. And my car battery died. And I'm like, yo, I have to figure out how to get home.
I mean, I
And
gotta use this $200 I just made
had to
to
buy it.
use a tow truck to get me to place. Man.
Yeah. Then that night, negative $10, man. I had to buy a new battery and get it towed. And so that was my first real experience in IT, and I kept coming
Jeez.
back.
Jeez. You just like abuse.
Oh yeah, give it to me, right? You gotta like it a little bit, right? Because you will find yourself, tested, and this
You
is a
gotta like the
growing.
challenge.
Yeah, yeah, like the challenge. I think that at yourself, myself, uh, we like to be challenged. We like to see, where it is that we fail, right? And is that failure because we didn't prepare, or is it because we realized that we just couldn't get something? And I like finding those boundaries for myself, right? Uh, just do it
Yeah.
until you realize that, dang, this is just above me, right? Because then you can actually stop worrying about whether or not you could have been something bigger. you
Right.
know, you actually know now that no, no, security engineer. That's where my my cap is, right? But you know, then you can actually find peace with that and start looking to do other things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you said, um, a really pivotal point that I hear a lot of people reach out to me, asking for the same advice. And that's kind of what drove me to start my blog and to start this podcast with you, right? Um, but something that a lot of people need to hear is that you have to have a 3 to 5 year goal in mind. Just have that in mind. Where do you see yourself 3 to 5 years? Okay. And then you need to look hard in the mirror and see where you are. Maybe you're fresh out of college and you have zero help desk experience. You don't know anything about help desk, you know, and your goal is to be a system admin or a system engineer or a security engineer, you know. How do I get there? So, a lot of people want to make some shortcuts, make life a little bit easier, and just go straight in to be a security analyst. And honestly, I wish you could do it, but a whole lot of companies out there do not have that sort of uh, career roadmap for you where you can just evolve into this security professional that you want to be, that they need you to be. Organizations are looking for the total package, which, if you ask me, I think it's complete backwards. It's completely backwards from how an organization should be run, should be
Definitely.
hiring, should be recruiting. They shouldn't be doing that. It is completely wrong and completely unfair to the candidate because I mean, I've had experiences where I interview for a place. I think the role is absolutely perfect, exactly what I'm looking for. I tick all the boxes, and then they say, you know what? We don't have the time to train you in this one little area for 6 months, or 3 months, or 2 months, or 1 month. We don't have the time. Your day one needs to be the first day of your new project, like you know, and uh the way that you get there, though, the way that you're able to do that is by taking a role that you may not like. You may not want it. You may hate it. I mean, I hated my first couple of jobs. I mean, my first couple of jobs, I hated every single day I went into work, every single day. I didn't enjoy what I was doing. I didn't enjoy the people I was working with. I did not like the company that I was working for. I did not agree with my manager. But I still went to work. I still got that line item on my resume, and sometimes that's what matters, and that's something that you have to keep in mind. It's a process.
Yeah, yeah. I think what you start to realize that it's the journey that actually brings you fulfillment and happiness,
Yeah,
not necessarily the job or the role.
yeah,
And that's not to say that where you work may not actually bring you some happiness in your life. Of course, you should always want to, have a nice place to work, but you will have some situations that are testing you. But getting into IT and security, like Joe has said, it's a process that there's not a real great bridge to get people who don't have experience into the ranks, right? Into that junior role where they can do shadowing and mentoring and learn. Um, a lot of organizations are pressed, right? They want to hit quarterly earnings. They want to get the project completed within the scope time, right? And so they like to bring in people who can kind of hit the ground running. That's the quote there. And And so you will have to potentially get into a position and move sideways. I move sideways. I think it's probably the best way to get into IT security is you want to learn, right, what it is you're protecting, right? Trying to protect something without understanding how it works is difficult, right?
It's
If you're
almost
able,
impossible.
yeah, if you can actually learn what the imaging process looks like, then as a security professional, you can come in and make sure they're hardening it properly, right?
Yeah.
Because they have to inject drivers, they have to keep the image updated with the latest Windows patches, right? They have to turn off protocols and services that aren't going to be needed by those people who are going to receive that image. Whereas if you're working from a situation in which you're brand new to security, then how do you have that intuition, right? To take that
Right.
shortcut and say, well, I'm going to go to that end user team or that imaging team and come to them with 10 controls that I know will harden that image. And I'm doing this because, well, I know for a fact that we used to take these shortcuts when I used to image. And so, and so, yeah, if you're on the system admin team or the desktop team or the infrastructure team, it's a great way to learn the core, right? LDAP, Microsoft. Um, if you're in a shop that uses Linux, hey, Linux, right? And then when you become a security professional, you understand you can leverage SCCM, right? You can leverage Active Directory. You can leverage some of those tools and don't necessarily have to go buy them on the security side, and your boss will be happy, right? Because he's like, hey,
Yep.
you're solving problems, and you're not costing me money to have to buy a whole nother tool to do, something that another tool that we already possess can do.
Right. Right.
You know,
Yeah, I think a part of that as well is on the when you're on the journey, you know, you need to be improving yourself outside of work, right?
definitely.
Security isn't just a hobby. It's not just a career. I hire people that security is a way of life. That's who I hire.
Yeah.
Okay, and I will always hire them over other candidates. And what do I mean by that? So, when I was in help desk, okay, we had almost no security at the company. I mean, literally almost none. Okay, let's not even talk about physical security. Just the security around the data. We had almost none.
Mhm.
And I got an interest in security, and so I started studying it. I started learning the principles. And so then when I started learning the principles and I looked at our product, I, I didn't really see any of that in there.
Sure.
And so I started making changes, in my own lab at work, trying to make it more secure, trying to pitch it internally of why we should make it more secure, additions to the code that we can make, um, things like that. Because I was passionate about it. I went out of my way at work to add to my already growing workload because the workload was already insane. Like I could easily go home and do work. And I added more to it because not only did I love it, but it was the right thing to do, right? Like, what kind of a professional am I if I'm sitting there and we have a bug in in our Apache server that is 4 years old that is actively being exploited in the wild? Like, how
Yeah.
can I call myself a security professional without yelling at someone for that? Like, and I've yelled several times. I get loud. I get very frustrated with people. I really, I should probably work on holding that back a little bit more because like people, will pull me outside after the meeting and be like, "Hey, like you were a little bit aggressive there." Like, well, like I don't play around with this.
Y'all don't want Joe the pit bull on you. You better patch these servers.
I'm 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 like a chained up pit bull.
Say,
Don't don't let me go. But if you let me go, you
I'll
better
meet you
expect
at
some
the.
blood.
You go meet him at the pop machine. Like, oh, you trying to get a Coca Cola, huh? Take the 7 Up. Take the 7 Up. You want to patch these
Yeah,
servers? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And yeah. I mean, that's good. You always want to have some kind of pride, right? Because again, if you don't, you'll let that thing go on unnoticed and don't have visibility. And if something happens, right, you feel guilty because you're like, oh man, I just saw it,
right.
right?
I think another point that is very valuable to make is that early on in your career, you should always be getting more and more comfortable with talking to new people, with learning from new people, um, and truly, getting to know them in a genuine way. So I know a lot of professionals that do not do that. It's all work to them, and they're known in their organizations as being very difficult to get along with, being very difficult to work with, and it's a little bit mistaken, but I can see it, right? And I can see it because when I sit down to, just have a 30-minute meeting with this guy over something that'll maybe take me, 10 minutes or something. He immediately just wants to dive into work. Doesn't ask me about my weekend. He doesn't want me to ask him about his, and that's fine and all. But in security, you need to know people. You need to be able to connect with people, right? Because just because you're security doesn't mean that people are going to want to help you, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
normally the contrary.
yeah,
Normally, when I go to someone and say, "Hey, what you've been doing the past X amount of years is slightly wrong, and we need to correct it this way." I'm an enemy. No one wants to work with me. I'm giving them more work, and I'm telling them that their previous work was wrong.
yeah,
And I have proof. I can give you definitive proof. And I have standards and guidelines that are widely used throughout the world that back that up, right? Like, and so you're only going to make enemies. And so it's critical that you learn how to talk to people, how to really, you know, just make friends. I mean, there I am almost more used in my environment as a resource person, as in like someone from my team is like, "Oh, I need to get this done. I have no clue who in this 20,000 person organization can help me with this." And I'm typically the one that says, "Oh, I got a guy. I know someone that can actually get this done tomorrow."
sure,
You know?
yeah. And you obviously have a different role because of your capabilities, right?
Very different role.
There are situations in which there may be security positions that don't have to interface much with internal staff or
Sure.
other internal IT people, right? You can work on a SIM, right?
Oh yeah, you could be locked away in a sock.
Yeah, you can be analyzing logs and creating rules to do correlated event alerting, and making sure the dashboards are appropriate. So it's going to depend, right? I think that especially from like your perspective and my perspective, once you start to get into that architecture level, right, where you're actually branching different cross-functional groups together, then you're definitely right. Soft skills end up becoming one of the most paramount things,
Yeah.
and it leads into sales opportunities, right, or customer facing opportunities where you have to actually try to use different motivators in order to get something done. But it generally um, is going to be dependent on your role, right, and what you're going to be doing at any particular time. But you want to develop those soft skills as early as possible. So
Yeah.
there is never any harm in going into an organization or a place and saying, hey, you know, you know, I need to make sure that I can understand what motivates these other individuals, right? This guy may have a workload that's pressing him, and he has to do all this activity, and then here comes security with a list of controls and standards and processes, and it's just going to you're going to cause a little bit of frustration with that, right? And like Joe said, how do you actually provide that information in a way that that person understands that, hey, you're on their side, right? You understand
Right.
that you know maybe there's not enough resources in this area, right, where he can just do this readily. And but you say, hey, I'll work with you. Now, if we have to do this in a phased approach, we will. If we have to set out a timeline, we will, right? But you can help them, and they can help you, right? Because in the end, if it's secure, everybody looks better, right?
Yep. Yeah. If it's secure, everyone wins. I mean, really, who doesn't win when it's not secured and the workflow is working properly, right? When we have optimized workflows. And so I actually want to stress that a little bit because as you become a more experienced security professional, it's going to be really easy to lock things down. And I mean, even just studying for your security plus, which you should be doing when you're in a help desk role, you should be studying for those
Yeah,
certs.
we were going to talk about that. Yeah.
When you're doing that, you'll see it's very easy to lock everything down, right? But it's not always the best for the users. What if what if you know, the assets that you're trying to protect, the team that is trying to patch them can't even log in to patch them?
Yeah.
Is it really that secure? Because they have to jump through so many hoops. And this is actually a real problem that I'm dealing with right now, where there are environments that are literally so secure and so locked down for various reasons that were determined over a decade ago that you have to jump through 3 or 4 jump servers just to patch something. I mean, how crazy is that? It takes my tier 2 guys, you know, 30, 40 minutes just to get to the server to patch it. Uh, I mean, security is great and all, but you can't be, man, you cannot be just
A
locking
hindrance.
it down. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't be a hindrance. You can't be, because you know what? If you are, then it turns into um, a bigger problem internally. Then VPs get involved.
Yeah. I mean, so what you're talking about is the other end, right? There's
Right.
a battle in security to actually get them to do anything. And then there's another side where things are just they've been done in a way that actually doesn't reflect the risk, right? It doesn't reflect the business requirements.
Yep.
It doesn't reflect the timing requirements. It doesn't reflect some of the items that a good security architecture will help eliminate in terms of redundancy or just things that slow down, right? Time to value. You want to understand exactly what the data flow is. You want to understand what the threat scenarios are. You want to understand what the egress and ingress are, right? Do you have to have 3 jump servers? Can you have 1 jump server with MFA? Can you have a SIM logging all the access to that box and alerting on any anomalous activity? Can you make it so that accounts that enter that environment are only enabled at a specific time so that no account can get in there unless it's a maintenance window? And when that maintenance window happens, you enable their accounts and you give them the ability to get in and get out, right? There are other ways that you can look at it. It's going to depend, right? Every scenario is different. But if you get to the point where you just think layer in, layer in, layer in, layer in security, then you have to make sure that you're doing it appropriately, right? Make sure you understand the business requirements, have a security architecture framework or something that you can at least refer to, right? And then understand the risk, right? Because you may be doing all that and all you're patching is a public server that hosts grocery, list. And it's like, well, man, we
Who
got
cares?
we got some pretty good security to make sure that nobody knows that that person is buying carrots on Saturday. So a lot of times it's like, hey, don't overdo it, right?
Right.
It impacts cost, right? Because layering in all those controls have a cost, administrative and monetary.
So, how do you maintain your enthusiasm to how did you do it to maintain it to get into security?
Sure.
And how do you keep it now? Because I mean, I even go through seasons where I mean it's tough, man. Like there's a lot of stuff that I need to be doing, outside of work because I have a lot of side projects going on and things like that. And I mean, it's tough. I don't want to do it every day. So how do you keep yourself engaged, and what worked for you in the past?
Yeah, I mean, so early in my career, again, it was about a challenge, right? It was just about, you're looking up as a service desk guy or a desktop guy, and you're like, well who are the big shots?
Yep.
Oh, it's an engineer, right?
Yep.
It's an administrator, it's an architect, it's a level 3, right? And you're like, okay, well, why can't I be that, right? And
Yep.
so then you devise a plan. Well, success usually has, a lot of times a well written road, right? Especially like in our field, right? Get educated. Security Plus, right, was that entry, right?
Yep.
CompTIA obviously has a good set of entry level certifications for anybody getting into IT. You got your A plus, your Security Plus, your Network Plus, right? Those were the triad, right? Those were fundamental back when I was getting certified back in 2011, 2012. And because I wanted the role, right? Versus just saying, I hope, I hope, I hope. Well, I
Right.
wanted to actually prepare myself to actually make it so that if they denied me, that there was something wrong with you, right? Because I'm telling you, I'm busting my chops to get in here, right? I got the passion, I got the enthusiasm, I got the certifications, I have the knowledge, I have the lab. I'm doing everything I can possibly do because I love IT, I love technology,
Yeah.
and so that was my road in. So I got my C plus, my A plus, my Net plus, my Security plus, and then the first real role I had was it was just popping USBs into old tough books in order to update the mapping software on there. And,
Hmm.
and and that's what I did for a whole year, at a gassing company. I drove around to all their different remote sites, popping in a USB and updating their maps. Now that I know about security, I probably would have made some suggestions about that. And just popping USB into anybody's, tough book and letting things download.
That shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah,
Nothing bad's ever happened with a USB or anything, right?
yeah, of course not.
That doesn't
But
happen in security.
you go through that experience now and you can look back. So I think that the A plus, just so you have a fundamental understanding of what a computer is, right? What does RAM, what does memory, what does CPU do, and all of that. And then if you can get into a help desk position, a service desk position, a desktop technician position, you get in there and you run with it, and then you get your Security Plus, and you come to podcasts like ours. You reach out to Joe or myself. You reach out to mentors at your workplace, and you network so that you can find somebody that can kind of help guide you along that. But you're going to have to put in most of the work, right? You're going to have to be the one that says
Right.
after I get my Security Plus, I'm going to get this, which one was the one for hacking, pen testing.
The
That
pen
was
test. CompTIA has one that's called the Pen Test Plus, and then there's the CEH, which is
ethical hacking.
extraordinarily overpriced. I mean, for the my
Yes.
God,
Yeah.
when I took that exam, I mean, look, I'm not that old. I didn't take it that long ago. Okay, it was $300.
Yeah.
It is $1,000 now.
Oh wow, I didn't know
It
that.
is 1,000. I tried to. I didn't know the cost, and I'm mentoring a friend of mine to get into security, and he got his Security Plus, and he's real eager. Always trying to learn new stuff. Just wanted to know what that cert is that he should be getting next. And I said, like I tell everyone, you need to know all of the information in the CEH book. Every single thing in there, you need to know it. You don't need the cert, but you need to know every single thing in there. And if you know everything in there, you might as well get the cert. So he went and did his research and came back and said, "Man, that's $1,000 cert." I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hold on."
Yeah.
That price went up a little bit.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, they all. I think when I first got my A plus, it was like $95 or something like that.
Yeah, the basic CompTIA ones are still pretty decently priced. I think the Security Plus one is still like $300, but it's not outrageous, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That's you definitely want to get as close as you can to passing on the first shot with those though.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some Microsoft certs where you can get like a voucher and you can take it for $75, right? So you
right.
know you can use one of those as a practice test, right? And not really feel too out of it, right? But uh, yeah, the pricing it matters, and just for the CH and that one, right? There may be better value out there, right? You can kind of move into the ISC squared with their I think it's a and I can't recall the name of that one right off the top.
SSCP.
Yeah, the SSCP, right? The
Yep.
SSCP. That's like that first one that they offer that is a
It's like
good
their
jump
basic
off from
one.
this, yeah, from the Security
Yeah.
Plus. You can kind of reach there, right? Because it has less requirements than a CISSP where you want to have 5 years and you can get a
Yep.
year knocked off because of a degree or of another certification. Um, but that one, I think it's more like two, right? And even
Yep.
then, right, it's just if you have a Security Plus, you're knocking off a year. I think so. Yeah, that's a good path to take. To me, I would recommend a Security Plus, then a CC a SSCP. Um, you know, eh,
Yeah.
but
I would recommend something like that. Um, and something that I always tell people is get books. You're gonna need to get different books on these different topics in security to really understand them. And I mean, really, you got to go through them, have your own home lab. If you have a laptop that has Windows 10, you can set up a VM and you can do a home lab. It's a very rudimentary home lab, but I was broke and I did it. That's exactly how I did it. I just had several VMs running on my laptop. I would run pen testing scans and all this other stuff against, a vulnerable VM and just followed the labs in a book. It's like the Hackers Playbook 2, Hackers Playbook 3. Those are great because you know what? Those will also prepare you for your interviews for when you're, applying and interviewing for a security analyst position or a security engineer position because those employers, when you don't have any security experience, they want to see your motivation to get into this field outside of the field. You're not even in it right now, and they want to see how bad you want to get into it, right? And I think that might have been one of the things that you actually hired me over, right? Because
I'm much older than Joe.
a little bit.
Just a little bit.
So back back when I was trying to get into security, back in my day,
Right.
Derek was in management at a company, and I don't think I told Derek. I don't know if I told Derek this yet, but I literally had two interviews that day. I had an interview with Derek, and I had an interview at another company. And I literally told myself, all right, after 200 plus interviews for security roles that I absolutely should have got it.
Wow.
If I don't get an offer today, I'm not going to security. I'm just not doing it. I'm giving up. Right. I had lost my enthusiasm. I had my security plus at the time. I started my master's because nothing else was working. So I went and decided to go get a master's in cybersecurity. So I was like, several months into my master's. And if y- I had no real security title experience, right? I was forcing my hand into security at the company that I was currently at. Like I said, they didn't really have very many security controls. They didn't really care about vulnerability management. And so I took over that aspect of the company. I really led that whole process. But another issue in the security field is if you literally don't have security in your title or a security title, the odds of you getting into security, even when you say, I am running the entire vulnerability management program for this company, is still very small because I was doing it. I had all the answers that they asked me. There wasn't something that, I was asked that I didn't know that I had to just say, I just straight up don't know. I still just wasn't getting the job. I don't know. Maybe they didn't like my face or something. I don't know.
Any given day, I always wonder what it is that made them go one way versus the other because it usually isn't necessarily if you're competent or that they believe you can do the job.
Right.
I think they realized that pretty quickly, right? That, oh, this person would be able to fulfill the role. It's other things, right? Happening in the
It's
background,
it's the other
politics,
90%. Yep.
organization stuff, time to value. Do they have to spend any time getting you ramped up? You
Yep.
know, how can they actually protect themselves so that they can actually get to the next bonus?
Right.
You never know, right? And so, you know, it's different when like somebody like me who was put in a position who was told, hey man, we need three young guys who's going to come in here and give it what they got. And that was it.
Yep.
That's all I was told, right? I didn't have to actually say that that person had to have 3 years of this and the security that. I didn't have to have any of that. And for me, you know, that whole hiring season, right? I was looking for people who could come in and convince me that they actually wanted more than what I was going to give them, right? Because I can get you a security analyst role.
Right.
Do you want something greater than that, right? Because if you
Right.
want something greater than that, then you can roll with me, man. Because I'm trying to take over the world.
I
But
think I told you in the interview, you were like, "What role do you want?" And I said, I really want engineer. I've been an analyst at my current company for a while. I want engineer, but I will take whatever you give me.
yeah,
Like, if you give me something with security in the title, I will take it." And then, like 2 weeks in, you guys on a phone call referred to me as an engineer. I
yeah,
was like, "Am I an engineer or am I an analyst?" Just point blank. And
yeah,
you were like, "You could call yourself whatever you want." I'm like, "I'm an engineer."
yeah. And I'll give you
It
engineer
doesn't
work.
matter.
Hey,
It
I'm
doesn't
like,
matter.
I'm like, hey, what do you want to be? All right, well, here's that workflow. Yeah,
Yep.
here's the workflow then, right? Because
But yeah,
yeah,
what you didn't tell me then is that I now owned
yeah,
a technology that I absolutely hated. And every day to this day, when I log into it, I absolutely hate it. But you know what? It's considered to be my quote unquote specialty.
yeah,
IAM. It really taught me IAM. I mean, it drilled it home.
yeah.
I knew everything about the technology that there was to know. And I mean, God, dude, I just I can't describe how much I dislike this technology. If I ever interview somewhere and I ask them point blank, "What's your PAM solution?" And if I hear the one that I had the bad experience with, there's been times when I just get up and leave the interview. I can't have the risk of ever touching that thing again. Because as soon as they figure out my experience with it, they're going to be like,
Oh
"Oh, you
yeah,
can, oh
yeah,
my God, you can help us."
yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
no, there is no helping.
I barely made it out alive. I'm not going back in, right?
It's like, I had hair before I started working on this tool. I had hair. Derek is my witness. My wife is my witness. I started working on that damn tool. I lost all my hair,
Yeah,
all of it.
it's but you did a good job with it, right? And that's the thing, right? It was giving you a chance, right?
Yep.
And you had that passion to say, hey, you know, well, if I want to be great, well, what I'm not going to do is allow for this to define me, right? That does,
Yeah.
and whether or not you liked it or you preferred it or you loved it, right? You got in there and you just did what you had to do, right? You talked to the vendor. You're like, yo, this is not. You guys need to fix this. You need to
I
fix. You did
There
what you
was
had to
times
do.
when I owned the vendor. I
Yeah,
mean, I dug into them. And
yeah,
you know what? From my perspective as a customer, if my vendor messes up, oh my God, dude, I lay into them because you know what? What I do internally for them is I'm selling them.
yes,
I'm selling them every day, all day. I'm saying how great my vendor is. I'm saying how great this technology is, what we can do with it, what we need to be doing with it, how it's going to improve our workflow, how much ROI we're going to be getting on this single technology. And so if I do all of that and my vendor messes up like in a big way where it's seen outside of me and my team, I
yeah.
mean,
It's a problem.
I there are vendors that can tell you how hard I've come down on them, and it's never fun. I mean, it's a little fun, but it's like, come on.
Yeah,
I just want top notch. All That's all I want. I want top notch. And be honest with me. If you can't do it, please tell me that you can't do it. If it's
yeah.
coming down the pipeline, just tell me it's coming down the pipeline so I can set expectations.
We're going to be able to talk a lot about vendors because specifically we
Yeah.
have a lot of history with them and
Phew.
third party risk management and supply chain management is just something that you know I own at this point. And so, giving tidbits about that is definitely going to be something we want to talk about. But yeah, um, you're going to have a relationship with your vendors, right? You're going to have a portfolio of safeguards, and you need to trust that that back end and that customer service is where it needs to be, right? Because if something happens and an executive calls your department and your manager comes to you because you run a tool and he's like, hey, such and such happens, what happened, why, and fix it. Well, you don't want to be in a deer of headlights, right? You want to know who you need to contact, and you want to know their response time is going to be adequate, and you want to know that they're going to do a great job of coming in and telling everybody they're sorry, so that that relationship stays healthy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different dynamic, right? So that's what happens when you move into security, right? Then you start having to deal again with cross functional, right? You start dealing with contracting, you start dealing with vendors, right? And so there's a lot of different opportunities. Like a lot of people may think that security is one or two or three different things. There are so many different branches, right, that you can go
Right.
into. App security, right? Software development, system
Man.
development, cloud, API security, right? Microservices security.
And
Um,
there's tools inside each one of those
yeah,
domains that you can be a specialist in.
yeah,
You can literally specialize in one technology in a certain domain,
hmm,
and that's all you do. And you get paid insane amounts of money to just do that.
yeah,
I've heard of guys that, run, Splunk or Logarithm for a company. That's all they do. That's the only thing that they do every single day of the week. And they're making close to $500,000. I mean, how insane is that?
I might have to go pick up my logarithm book. Damn.
Yeah. The right
I-
company, the right industry, the right tool, and they gladly pay it.
and so again, right? Paths, administrative, right? Or technical.
Yep.
You could be a technical resource that specializes in a particular software. Or you can be on an administrative side, right, where you're dealing with compliance and regulation and policy violations and auditing, right? And you're the furthest thing away from being able to do anything hands on keyboard and logarithm, right? But you can go down whatever avenues you want, and so we want to be able to definitely help you there. But you definitely need to have a foundation, right? So
It starts with that vision.
yeah,
Where do you want to go?
yeah, yeah, and you start making headway. Um, I think a security plus is a good foundation for any path.
For sure.
And then from there, you can branch out and you can look down what avenue you want to go. But stay enthused. Wake up every day hoping that you can actually, get an opportunity to, touch new things. Right? Everything you touch, whether it's in security or not, has security ramifications, whether you know it or not. And there are things you can do like get the CIS benchmarks, right? And pitch them to your organization and say, hey, can we harden our image using this? Can we harden our browsers using the CIS benchmarks? Can we harden our databases? Um, you know, and then what does the CIS top 20 say, right? Asset management, right? Find all the assets on your network, right? You can't protect what you can't see, what you don't
Right.
know exists, right? Do a software inventory. Understand all the software that people have in your environment. Should people have FTP software on their desktops in a sensitive data environment? If they shouldn't, then that's an end, right? You can be on that desktop team and say, hey, why are we imaging machines with software like this on there? Is there a business requirement for that? And say it nicely, right? You don't want your manager looking at you like, wait a minute, are you from compliance or something?
Man.
Maybe one day, but it gives you an opportunity, right?
Right. And I think that kind of brings in self-sufficiency,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
To an extent. You're able to take something that you learned in the Security Plus book and your studies and your Network Plus, whatever it is, and find things in the environment that don't necessarily line up with them. and try to resolve them, try to fix them. You know, I've had people that were very senior, much more senior than me at my company, that were, you know, in the technology area, and they were arguing with me that they didn't want telnet to the root, to the core network switch, uh disabled. They didn't want it disabled because then they had to use SSH, and it was, you know, it's more time because you got to put in a password.
They have to press an extra button.
You got to remember that password, which wasn't even the case because we had a password manager, and they
Remembering
just wanted telnet, man.
passwords shouldn't be that difficult. That's what we
Uh,
kind of do, don't remember a password, right?
I mean, I installed the password manager on his machine, and it's like, man, I can't use this thing, man. What? You can't use it? You don't do anything with it. It literally sits in your browser, watches your computer, and takes all your passwords and stores them in a vault.
That's too new. That's too new.
It's way too new, newer than Telnet, and they didn't like it. You know, and that's the thing. That's the thing. You got to be a little bit more self sufficient in security than you do with other IT fields. Other IT fields will say there's no projects in the pipeline. You're good. You don't have to work on anything. There's nothing for you to do. We're still going to pay you. Security, it's like, not only is there always something to do, we also need you to find the things that we don't know that need to be done. We need you to tell us what needs to be done when you get to higher levels. You know, but it's key to really kind of develop um skill sets that will get you there in the future. That's what we're talking about.
There will always be a black swan event. There will
Yes.
always be something that comes out of nowhere that takes everybody by surprise. And you want
Solar
to,
winds.
yeah, you want to be a calming force when that fog of war hits and that chaos hits. Because in that moment, you'll never be able to solve what's happening instantly. But what you can do is coordinate, right? A adequate response.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, as an entry level person into security, uh, you're going to be on that incident response team. You need to be able to be a value add in it, right? And that might be on a detection phase or the maybe it's containment, right? Maybe it's eradication. Maybe you're looking at that dashboard and letting people know that, hey, we got a red light over here, and they'll ask you, what does it mean, right? And you want to do a little bit of parsing yourself, right? Because false positives is a real thing, right? And one of the quickest ways that you can show yourself as somebody who is getting it is tuning false positives out of your environment, right?
Oh, such a headache.
You're going to get immediate exposure to a lot of tools that just ingest data and spit out information.
Yep.
And you don't want to trigger activity in an organization that ends up being false. You don't want a 12-hour investigation to lead to, oh, that was a internally developed process. Like, what are you talking about, man? Why did you flag it? Of course, it's not signed, right? Of course, it's not signed, and it's running out
Why would
of
it be signed?
a suspicious directory, and nobody knew about it. But that happens, right? And so you want to also be able to understand that when you get into security, man, it's going to be a quick onboarding ramp up for you, right? You're going to be a part of incident response. You're going to be a part of projects and audits, right? If your company is getting high trust or SOC or PCI audited or another regulatory audit, right? They're going to come to you and say, hey, new guy, security analyst, I need 15 screenshots of this. I need 10, reports of that. I need to see your vulnerability scanning report. I need to see this. I need to see that. So you're going to get a lot of exposure to a lot of different things, and it's fantastic and it's fun, right? So just stay prepared, right? Start learning the basics, the foundational stuff, right? Blocking and tackling. More than likely, is going to be, hey, what are the kind of ways that malware and viruses can get into my environment, or a bad guy, right? So focus on phishing, right? Focus on things like the VPN. Focus on MFA. Focus on some of those vulnerability, things, because those are real basic stuff, and that's where bad guys are going to enter. Right? They're going to come in through phishing. They're going to come in through your vulnerable web apps. They're going to come in through vulnerabilities and criticals. Right? They're going to come in through a lot of times being invited by social engineering. So, there's a lot of different ways you can, help your organization right off the bat, right? Which is just calling out some of those threats and just, helping devise a plan to handle them.
Yeah. I think another thing that has served me well is not bringing attention to issues without having answers.
Yeah.
Now, there's always that caveat, right? Like if it's a code red, something is critically down. Obviously, bring some attention to it. You don't need the answers, you need more attention. But, I always find it more valuable when I can present a current problem to someone, even if they, had no clue that it was there. And then I immediately have a solution for them.
Hmm.
Um, it shows that initiative is going to the next level. That's like that. That's there's initiative and self sufficiency that you have to develop, and when you start bringing problems with answers, well thought out answers, that really is taking it to the next level, and that's something that
Yeah.
you know there's a lot of security professionals that don't develop that skill, that are engineers that might be successful in their company, but if you throw them into another environment, they may not be. And that's the point, right? Nowadays, people are not at companies for their entire career. I mean, they really aren't. I don't know anyone that's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna retire at this company. I'm gonna be here for 30, 35 years and I'm gonna retire here. And so, the people that do that, that's all that they know. All that they know is that environment. They know that network inside and out. They know it better than their home network. They know these systems and applications and they know the people and all of that. And that is great. That is awesome. Companies need those sort of people. But it doesn't have to be you. And it's probably not going to be you. And so developing these skills will make you successful, not just at one workplace, but at most workplaces.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the quickest ways to separate yourself, um, as someone who's growing, is when you can come in with a solution, right?
Yep.
Hey, you see this? Hey, you see that? Um, this is the risk, right? We can resolve it this way or that way. If we resolve it this way, this is the benefit. If we resolve it that way, that's the benefit. But
Right.
you actually have options. And your management team will absolutely love you for it, right? What they don't like is people who quote unquote toss grenades. That's, you bring them the issue, and you're like,
Man.
hey, I guess you're gonna have to figure that out, boss. And yeah, right, because they're already juggling so much, they want people who they know can, independently help solve problems. And then what happens is they actually start empowering you and saying, hey, I got a few other processes over here, or meetings that need to be
Right.
attended. Can you
Right.
attend these meetings on my behalf, and represent our group? Because I know you're not going to put us in a worse position, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to bring back what you digest from that meeting, from that conversation, and you're going to let me know that, such and such asked for this or that, or here's a problem that they saw, and you know that you're going to hand them, like, here's a quick win for you, boss. We can do that. All I need is XYZ. I'll work with that group. We'll get a timeline going and we'll work it out for you. Once you start being able to do that, you're going to see yourself take those next steps in terms of, promotions, or having people that are, kind of that report to you, right? Because if you can
Yeah.
solve problems, then they're going to empower you to solve problems.
Right. right. I I think that hit the nail on the head. You know, there's another aspect to it all. It's the politics aspect of it all, right? There's always politics in something, and I think everyone has a different take on it. We're not talking about country politics. We're talking about internal politics at work, and you know, I don't think you do play the politic game. Um, I don't. However, I do like to pull out cards every once in a while. Makes conversations very interesting when I'm being denied something. But that's just because I know people. That's
Yeah,
all.
yeah,
I'm a people person,
yeah, exactly. It's a good thing.
and uh, it's interesting, right? Because there's two perspectives of it. You play politics, you buddy up to people, you become kind of disingenuous, you know, or disingenuine, whatever the word is. And
Both.
you know, maybe yeah, maybe you get along, maybe you get promoted, something like that. You know, maybe you're a little bit more protected, um, or you don't do it at all. And at some workplaces, that's like really bad. They
Yeah,
actually expect you to do it, and if you don't do it, you're honestly in some workplaces I've seen it where like you literally get fired, and you know, they find something else obviously to fire you over, or something like, you know, we didn't think you were a fit. It was your first 90 days. We can cut you loose whenever. You know, I've seen crazy things happen to people, and
yeah.
yeah, I mean, what's your take on it? You know, because so from my perspective, I don't I don't really play politics. Um, my whole purpose with developing connections and internal or external network is literally just to get to know people. You know, I'm not there to see what they can give me or what I could, you know, give them. That's secondary. Even when I have an active project that I need to get done or something like that, you know. So I don't treat people that way, and I hope that others don't treat me that way. Um, so what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, it depends. I
And
don't.
it can be difficult too, and this is why I bring it up. It can be difficult for someone getting into the field to think that they have to play politics in order to be somewhere, in order to get what they want, and they don't have to do that, you know.
It so when you look at what politics opens up for you, right? Well, obviously you're going to have more opportunities. If you don't play politics, your opportunities may be more restricted,
Right,
um, limited, right? Because there's only so far you can rise, right? Before you know that politics end up being a little bit more than say your production or your value from your production, right?
right,
For example, I know VPs who became VPs by not playing politics, and I mean it's like a miracle story, right? Because you realize that they were always the underdog, right? Because they said, "Hey, I'm going to roll with principle, integrity, honesty. I'm going to be brutal in all of those things." And you see how it hurts them because they're not in on a particular, group in their organization. Like, oh, we really
yep,
want this deal because X, Y, Z.
yep,
And obviously, you would hope that everybody has the same goals and objectives, but people are human beings, so they're going to be, layers beneath this, where that group may want something to happen, and you may, as a principled person who doesn't play politics, say, you asked me a question, you asked me what was 2 plus 2, and I said 4. I'm not going to say 5 because 5 is going to get us whatever it is, wink, wink, that we're looking for here, right? Because I
right,
don't know what we're looking for here. I didn't have that conversation with you guys. I'm just going to answer the facts, and it can question your savviness, um, your ability to have soft skills, but you can still rise pretty highly not playing politics, right? If you're just dedicated to the work and being a productive person who wants to treat everybody fairly and be honest and transparent, then you could still have a tremendous career and grow very, high, and move very far. But it just becomes a little bit more pressure or resistance, right? The higher you go, because it's a skill set, right? It's a
Yep.
tool. I know for a fact that if I had more political savvy, that I may have, gotten titles that were, higher than the ones that I've had so
Yeah.
far in my career. But you have to be okay with that, right? Because it's like, well, do I want the title, or do I want, to just, be at peace, right, with who I
Yep.
am and what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, right? So, and there's a middle ground there. But yeah, it's different, right? So you're going to have opportunities to advance without playing politics. So you don't have to fear that's going to hold you back. But as you grow, you're going to see where it has some value, right? It's like investing in the stock market, right? Or like saving, right? Or like eating right,
Right.
right?
Right.
There are things that not that you know they're going to help you out, right? If you partake in them, right? Now whether or not they're good and bad, in a vacuum, that's another story. But politics and understanding it will definitely, be something to be aware of as you move through your
Right.
career.
Yeah. So how do we train on a budget? All this training is fairly expensive, right? I mean, we're not getting training in tools without a company sponsoring it. And I just wanted to touch on this, make sure that I touch on this because this was definitely an issue for me. I mean, I was making no money trying to get this experience that my company, one of these security tools would be like the entire IT budget at my company that I was at. Um, the way that I was training back then and still today to an extent was really using all the free resources that I could or close to free resources. So that included getting textbooks and study guides, developing my own study guides, going on, free resources. YouTube is a good free resource. Podcasts like this one is a great resource. Um, and going on like Cyber IT.
Hmm.
Cyber IT is free and they give you great study guides, great training material that you can use. And whenever I get into an interview, or whenever I got into an interview and I didn't know the answer or I didn't have experience with the specific tool that they were requesting, a lot of the times my answer would either be, I don't know. I haven't had that opportunity yet in my career. That's partially why I'm looking for this role, but I would look it up. I would, do research on my own and I would find that answer for you. I would get that experience for you. And it worked with some places. Some places loved that response because they could see my own enthusiasm and my work ethic, right? Like I think you liked that response when I gave that to you when, we were talking in my interview all those years ago. Um, but that's something to keep in mind because leaving it at I don't know, it's only shooting yourself in the foot. That's a bad response. I don't know. I will look it up is a much better response. I don't know. I'll find out. This is how I'll find out is a far better response.
Yeah. If you don't know, say you don't know, and then have the follow up.
Don't try and lie.
Don't
We will
lie.
always know.
Yeah. Don't make up anything. Don't try to sugarcoat some narrative that you're pulling out of every dimension in a universe. Just say you don't know, right? But for anything we don't know, right? We have the opportunity to reach out to others or research. So, I mean, that's the best answer, right? If you don't know something, you'll find out. But showing an employer that you have a methodology for that, right, helps, right? So, like Joe said, if you lab, right, if there's a new technology or open source technology and you want some experience in it, well, you're going to put it in the lab and you're going to mess around with it. You're going to read white papers. You're going to visit the forums. You're going to understand where the people who mess with this hang out, because you want to show that, hey, I did some work before this conversation, right?
Yep.
You know, if you're going to ask me if I know anything about, SOA or Jenkins, well, I can tell you no, but I can also tell you that I understand what CI/CD is, and that I was messing around with a little bit of Jenkins the other day, right? It, I mean, it could be just because you knew the interview was coming. That's fine, right?
Right. Be prepared.
Yeah, be prepared, right? It's better to know that you're probably going to be expected to know something and have a response than to not do it because you don't want them to feel that the only reason you looked it up was because you had the interview. Like, no,
Yeah.
no, do what you have to do, be prepared. And when you don't know something, let them know you don't know, but that you will gladly go ahead and research that and get it back to them. Maybe you can send them an email, right? Even before they told you you're hired, you could say, hey, if you're still wondering about that question you asked me, I went ahead and I looked it up, and here's my response to that question. Right? Um, you'll probably get back to them faster than people internally get back to them when they're trying to get something done at the job. So
Yep.
I mean, they're always looking for people who are responsive. Um, but yeah, you definitely want to lab if you can. And there are resources now, right? I mean, you got Azure, you got AWS, where you can spin up environments now and use some of their free, trials. Or you could just set up a budget, right? Where you could say, I got $10 to learn AWS this month. I'll set up a budget. I'll spin up stuff and do things. And, once my $10 is hit, I'll get out of it, right? Um, there's a lot of opportunities, and always look for folks who are like Joe and I, who, man, you're passionate about this. I wish a security analyst would come to me and ask me about a control framework, or how I do risk identification, right? Or how we should handle a particular issue, right? It's like, no, we live for that, right?
Right.
But then a lot of times it's like, you get people who are older and got so much work, and as a young guy, you might think that, oh, they don't have time for me. Oh, I'm just going to get in their way by asking them these new questions. It's like trust us. We're looking for sidekicks,
Right.
eventual partners,
Right.
Padawans. We're looking for people that we know that when the things hit the fan, we got a team that we can rely on, and each other. So we're always going to look for that opportunity to get you guys, rolling right with us. So don't be afraid to reach out. And if some people, they don't look like they want to participate in that kind of move, then keep it moving, right? Not everybody is open, and but there are a lot of people who are. So don't ever get discouraged about reaching out for help and mentors. All you need is one. That's it, just one, and
Yeah.
it'll help you tremendously.
Yep. Totally agree. My mentors have always been helpful, you included, of course. Um, I definitely wouldn't be where I am or as successful without them, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and that's what we want to do. Give back. When we were trying to get into it, it's just finding those people who would, just pull us to the side and give us some tips. It was few and far between, right? And so
Nowhere.
as we moved up into our career and started getting our opportunities, we want to give that bridge back, so that when you're trying to get into IT or trying to go to a desk level 1 or level 2, we want to help you guys, you know, hit that next level, right?
Yep. That's what this podcast is all about. So I don't have anything else that I could think of that we didn't touch on in this topic. What else do you have, Derek? Anything?
I have
Should we close it
nothing.
there?
I think that this was a good first podcast. I don't think that we expected to talk as much as we did,
Probably not, no.
but I hope that we have the opportunity to keep doing this here. We can refine the process, right? Everything will improve. Things will get better. So be patient there. There's feedback to be had. People are going to tell me to shut the hell up and let Joe,
Yep.
with his silky smooth voice,
Yeah, right. It's the mic.
let him guide us to where we need to be. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. I definitely enjoy it. We're going to hit a lot of different topics, talk about news, what's happening in the news and cybersecurity space. just looking forward, you know,
There's a
for
lot
this
to come.
opportunity. Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
there's a lot to come. So thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. Please feel free to share it to anyone that you may think, may get any sort of value out of it. We will definitely keep on doing these podcasts. We will definitely keep pumping out episodes. So, thank you. Uh, thank you for listening. Thanks, guys.